Hi, everybody. It's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching. And today's topic is a touchy one. And, one of the things about our industry is something that is, I always find, so compelling and so interesting. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody. And it's not a bad thing, but we get a hold of terms, right? All of a sudden, the great resignation comes out and we're all using the term. And recently, I've been hearing something called quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is not new. And I'm going to make, and when I do these little workshops, I certainly do them to draw attention to our business and things like that, and get our concepts and our strategies out in the public. But I just have to make this very bold comment. I'm going to apologize again, and I don't think my views are that edgy, but I'm willing to say things I think sometimes people may not be willing to say, which can also get me in trouble. The fact of the matter is this: you get hired to do a job, you do the job. Now, my daughter just got a job at Cornell University. And I remember telling her when she started her college career, and I said, look, I'm going to give you the best advice I can give you, and you're going to think I'm nuts. I said, you do three things. And if you do three things, you won't be a part of this thing called quiet quitting. And the number one rule is show up early. Number two, stay late. And between those two times, offer to help your teammates out. Sadly, you will differentiate yourself. So we have to have something called work expectations. I am not against mental health. I'm not against people struggling where we need to give them a break, need to do some special things. But I think employees have got to remember something. You weren't hired for your opinion. You weren't hired to undermine upper level management. You weren't hired to start and quit 6 months later. Yet we seem to tolerate those things. Now, I've talked about this on a prior episode and a prior Wednesday workshop episode. I love my business. What I've hated about my business through the years are some of the employees that we've had. And I have no problem saying that. I'd say it in front of them. When you have people who start and don't do their job and talk to other employees about me or what the company doesn't do well, and they've never had a company. And I'm wondering if we're missing a huge opportunity and to literally list work behaviors that are not tolerated during the onboarding. During the onboarding. Let me just share with you a great story. Years ago, I was at a manufacturing client site, and this is a really good group of people, actually a great group of people. And I'm sitting there talking to them, okay? And people were griping about the plant manager and what he did wrong and what HR should do. And so the next session I got their job descriptions. And I think it was 3 highlighters. I think I had like pink, green, and yellow. And I said, with your highlighter, I want you to highlight in your job description where it says that you should share an opinion about upper level management's performance. And people are looking down at their thing, and they're looking at each other. They're looking, well, Tim, it's not on here. I said, well, that's okay. Then don't highlight it. Now take your green highlighter and highlight the area where it says that you should take on a management persona, where you should, be critical of upper level management strategy and their decision making. Everybody's looking down. It's not on there. And all of a sudden, after about 20 minutes, one guy, he looks up at me and he smiles. He knows exactly what I'm doing. And finally, a young lady said, Tim, none of it's on here. I said, then why do you do it? And all of a sudden, everyone just sat there, and I go, you weren't hired to gripe, but you do it every day. And all of a sudden, they just looked at me stunned, and I go, can I be really bold? Can I have permission? I've gotten to know all you people, and we get along great, but I'm going to say it. Shut up. And they all started laughing. I go, I'm serious. If you've never been a plant manager, if you've never been in upper level management, you do not have their perspective or responsibility. So it's easy to judge. It's easy to look up there and say what they're doing right or wrong. And so when we get back to this thing called quiet quitting, and all these thought leaders are now saying, the quiet quitting, it's not new. You are paid to do a job, do the job. End of discussion. There's just we negotiate on things that are crazy. Now, I give my employees some really flexible things. We give bonuses to part-time employees as well. We give time off with pay that they weren't expecting. We give them Friday afternoons. Hey, let's go chill, go enjoy your family. We do that stuff. Yet somebody below me who will say what I'm doing right or wrong, that's just, I mean, if you've never put your house up for collateral, and I said that to an employee once, and she goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "My house is, we have a credit line, albeit at zero balance, but my house is on the line. If my company fails, I could lose my home." "I didn't know that." I go, "Well, you seem to know everything else that I'm doing right or wrong." And she just looked at me and I said, "Yeah, your decision making changes when you've got more financial risk." One of the biggest cliche things I've ever seen employees do is they say, "Well, we need to hire more people. We need to spend money here." Really? Would you do it if it were your money? And the reason I take this tone is I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that we spend so much time, so much energy, so much anguish over making sure the employee is happy. And believe me, I think that's important. I've got 2 employees right now that are absolute superstars, but they weren't always superstars. They were willing to be coached. Was there some edge? Yeah. Did I draw a line in the sand saying I'm not open to your opinion in terms of what I'm doing right or wrong? Absolutely. I've got a mentor. I've got a coach. I've got an EQI coach. It's not without counsel that I'm running this business. And so when I go into companies and HR is like, "Wow, we have such a talent shortage. I get that. Yet we also have to be conscientious of one major thing. Okay. One major thing. You were hired to do a job. Do the job. If you're struggling, we're here for you." So I think one of the things that we do, I think we do too much of in the marketplace is we have these manic reactions to things. We have these manic reactions. Well, there's a talent shortage. Let's do this for our employees. And all of a sudden, employees aren't performing. I always find it funny when we onboard people. When you think about onboarding and you think about the onboarding, what we onboard to is the job. And I've said this so many other Wednesday workshops, but I'm going to say it again. Think about coachability. Think about feedback. Think about seeking feedback. Think about professional acceptance of feedback. Think about those things. Think about high school and college. Think about how many people have taken courses in coachability and feedback. Probably haven't. So we go from high school, maybe to college, maybe 8 to 10 years, maybe 4, 5, 6 years high school, enter the workplace, and guess what happens? We're going to get feedback. The job of feedback is to accept it. Doesn't mean to agree with it. But there's no job description that says, please fight vigorously and go to the water cooler and gossip if you don't like the feedback you get from your boss. And for God's sake, please tell other people what you dislike about your boss. Now, I bet you're laughing right now, right? Then why do people do it? Because we tolerate it. So I remember telling my daughter this: show up early, stay late, and in between those two things, if you're helpful, you will always differentiate yourself. Now, we're doing something here at the company that has been one of my passions. And one of my passions is something called the power of differentiation. Now, we actually created a program for salespeople called the Sales Difference. We just built a course called the Employee Difference, how to differentiate yourself. Let me just share something with you that is, think about this, is startling. Think about if you're an employee. I hope individual contributors are watching this. Think about how easy it is. So the Gallup organization, and the statistics have varied in recent years, and our engagement is actually going down in the United States right now. As I look at this, statistically, about 25 to 30% of people are truly engaged. The rest, 70-some%, are neutrally or actively disengaged, meaning they're being negative, they're undermining. 70%, 7 out of 10 people. Then when I go to, and I've said it a million times, Tasha Urich's book, The Insight, one of my favorite books, and she talks about people becoming self-aware. And when she surveyed people, 95% said they were highly self-aware. She tested them, about 10% were somewhat aware. That is an 85% fallout. Think about those statistics and how easy it is if someone comes in early, stays late, and offers to help every single day in between those two time frames. That's what employees can do today. It's very low hanging fruit. So when we're onboarding, I think one of the things that we have to do is not only talk about work expectations, but also talk about here are the behaviors we absolutely will not tolerate. It is grounds for dismissal. Let me share this with you. I will never forget a time frame, and I want you to hear this because most people won't say what I'm about to say to you. This was at this manufacturing site, and I remember there was a gentleman there who I really liked, and he was in our leadership academy, and I'll never ever forget this. And I want you to really hear this and steal this story if you want, but I'll never ever forget this. The guy was spouting off on how the president was walking through the plant and he had customers and he just walked by me and he ignored me. So he's, excuse my language, he's just leading with piss and vinegar, right? That guy should do this. And he was critical. And I kept trying to stop him. People in the room were watching it. People in the room were watching him. And I'm trying to stop him. And I finally just said, you got to stop. And he goes, well, my dad, I said, your dad doesn't run this company and nobody gives a crap what your dad thinks at this company. Because you were leading with your opinion, you don't know the context of why. Now, the CEO of the company at this time is actually one of the most engaged, gregarious, fun people I've ever been around. So about 2 weeks later, actually before the 2 weeks, after everybody left, I looked at him and I go, you just made a huge mistake. I said, there were people in this room and you didn't even notice it that were rolling their eyes. That story is going to take on a life form. My advice is you really need to pull back. He said, but Tim, you don't understand. I said, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. You have to support the company. Your job description doesn't have anything to criticize the president. And he goes, yeah, you're right. About a week and a half later, I get a call. Could you stop into the office before you start your next workshop? I said, sure. Stop in and they bring up the issue. And I said, look, you need to talk to him. I'm not going to get in the middle of this. I said, I tried stopping it. Yes, he spouted off. Here's what he said. And the president evidently said, the customer requested not to be introduced to employees. We want to just do a quick tour. We don't want to engage with their employees because we haven't decided if we're going to do business with you. We don't want to have intimate discussions with your employees if you feel the need to invite us. So the customer asked for it. So about 2 weeks later, I ended up going back to this person. I said, you remember a couple of weeks ago when you brought this up? He said, yeah. I said, let me add context to what actually happened. So I shared it with everybody in the group and I said, what's the lesson here? And everybody said it. Everybody, including this guy, said, don't assume. I said, I got a call a week and a half later and your name was brought up. And by the time it got to upper level management, guess what happened? He goes, what? I go, it wasn't even close to what you really happened. It was worse. Because what do you mean it was worse? I go, people add their own context to things. You assumed and you started telling everybody. So when we get back to this notion of quiet quitting, we have to establish we're hiring you to do a job, do the job. We're hiring you to do a job with absolute positive attitude, energy, disposition, not negativity. 7 out of 10, Gallup. 95% don't have self-awareness. We have got an issue in our workplaces. It does not come from our efforts to appease and placate and be helpful and nurture mental health and anxiety and stress in the workplace and connectivity. Those are real issues. I'm not dismissing those. What I'm saying is let's get back to the fundamentals. And I'm going to just close out with this. If you're interested, by the way, send me an email to tim@progresscoachingleader.com. If you're interested in hearing more about the employee difference, it is an online course with workshops where we teach them how to differentiate themselves, how to separate themselves from the pack. And I just think that we've got to get back to it. And I want to share this with you. I'm 58 years old, and 37 years ago, I did an internship at IBM. 39 years ago, I started it. And there was no room for opinion. There was no room to badmouth management. You would be immediately terminated. And it was the best experience I ever had. Walked into the place, didn't know a thing about computers, didn't know anything about technology. And now here I am today using technology like crazy. And I remember my boss said, Here's what I expect from you. You do what you say you're going to do, you do it on time, and you do it without attitude. And you come in here for the minute you clock in and you go. Need to take a break, but you come in here ready to go. And there was no grounds. And I remember that feeling going into IBM. And a lot of people pulled plugs for me to get that job. And I thought to myself, I could never let her down. Here's the funny thing. I hear about internships today. We're like, oh, yeah, we can have this person. We'll do this fun stuff with the interns, and then we'll be able to hire them because we have a talent shortage. I think that's great stuff. But they have to come in with an expectation. Do the job. Show up early, stay late, and be helpful in between those two things, and they will differentiate themselves. The quiet quitting thing, it's not new. You have it every single day in your organization. How do we stop it? The number one rule is we have to sit down with our people and have conversations with them. And we have to find out what their motivator is, what they want. One of the most fundamental things we're doing with this talent shortage is we're appeasing and placating people. Do they even want to work for us? Do they even like the job that they're doing? If not, is there something inside the company they could do? It's that fundamental. Teach your leaders how to have conversations. Teach your employees the power of differentiation and what they can do to accelerate their career that will provide the work behaviors that will meet work expectations and avoid the work behaviors that are not tolerated. Thanks for your time. Send me an email if you're interested in the employee difference. It's really a cool, innovative approach to teaching the masses. And what that also does is creates more coachable and approachable people. So send me an email if you're interested. Thanks, everybody.